my toe blister was bigger and badder than ever. I believe I took off my sock when we rested, and I looked at that thing, and I was just like, good Lord, it is the size of my entire big toe. Like, it had gone all the way around the toenail, and it was like 2 3/4, an inch high.
Oh my gosh, an inch.
It had like an eyes and a nose and a mouth, and it was talking.
2 mouths.
It had 2 mouths.
That's how it could get so big. Hi, I'm Carrie. Oh my gosh. And I'm Molly. And you're listening to the Two Sisters on Adventures podcast. Okay, well, we're trying to do this intro like 35 times, and today Molly has a case of the giggles. What started it?
I don't know.
So I said, I'm not going to keep stopping and restarting this video.
It's true.
And I still stopped and restarted it like 3 more times.
Now she's...
Yeah. And now,
I'm getting what I deserve.
It is what it is. Yeah. So.
And now we can say it together. Nope.
Okay.
Not ready yet.
Just collect yourself for a while.
Fine.
We're on a limited schedule here. It's not funny. It's true. Okay. Do I need to restart it?
No.
Okay. All right. So, this is day 8 of the Tahoe Rim Trail. Oh my gosh, you cannot laugh at every single thing I say. It's not that much different from normally what's happening, but like it's slightly a different vibe. Okay. Day 8, Tahoe Rim Trail.
Yes.
We're waking up and it's beautiful. It's sunny. It's kind of actually warm at Lake Aloha. We'd had a nice night. It wasn't windy.
Oh, we were so thankful because when we had service at the top of Dick's Pass and we could see that it was actually supposed to be windy at that, like, the night. Mm-hmm. That's why we tried to find a sheltered area and everything, and I swear there was no gusts of wind the entire night. So it was, it was perfectly beautiful. Still. We could have probably pitched our tent freestanding on a rock and then just left it there and walked away from it and would have still been there at the end of the night.
I was thinking about something we didn't talk about last week, which is Lake Aloha is so much granite, and it's the first place that I ever felt truly like a little panicky about finding a place to dig a cat hole.
Actually, though.
Yeah. The night before, I spent all this time like going up amongst the rocks, and then I finally found a spot, but it definitely had been other people's choice as well, probably because it was like the only dirt in the area.
In fact, where we decided to pitch our tent had been someone's choice as well, because there was a piece of toilet paper in the vicinity.
Maybe it blew there.
Yeah, maybe. But I was just like, I can't keep looking for a place to pitch my tent because I just want to sit on the ground. Yeah. So I pitched it next to a piece of toilet paper, and I've done that before.
And I'll do it again.
And
this isn't the first time, and it certainly won't be the last. That's why we pack out our toilet paper.
Pack it out,
That's one reason.
One time we were hiking on Earth Day, actually, and it was in the Mount Jefferson Wilderness. And the snow had just started to melt, and we were like, well, we can pick up, like, any pieces of garbage that we see. And then we stumbled upon literally just so much dirty toilet paper.
Unbelievable. We think that someone snow camped there, and they buried their toilet paper in the snow, apparently not thinking about how when the snow melts, the toilet paper is still just going to be there, not even underground, just sitting on top of it. They'd also left, like, a lot of broken glass. Yeah. It was a very weird day.
I picked up the glass, but I apologize. Yeah, I drew the line. I couldn't bring myself to pick up the toilet paper.
That was a tangent.
It really was.
That was completely unrelated.
We did have a nice, like, good night of sleep in the tent, and the sun came up, and all of a sudden it was this brand new day. And did we get out in time to see the sunrise? I think
we did. We got up before sunrise.
Early.
The sunrise was not anything to write home about, but the sunset the night before had been, so I can't really complain.
Yeah.
Plus, the thing that was there to write home about was Molly's hair was completely insane. It was like all sticking up around her face.
I mean, I think I had been brushing my hair.
I don't know.
I gave up. So on through hikes where I'm not so tired all the time or lazy, I guess, I will brush my hair like every other day or sometimes daily. But I think I had stopped brushing my hair probably 4 days ago and wearing a hat every night. Yeah. And when I took off my hat that morning, Carrie just laughed and doubled over laughing. And We'll show you the picture.
Yeah.
You
that can be found on our Instagram or Facebook
and
at
maybe
Two
we'll
Sisters
throw one
on
up on
Adventures,
YouTube for the
if we learn
visual
how to do that.
podcast watchers. But it was a halo of hair. It was impressive.
It was a nice morning, and I feel like we kind of enjoyed ourselves, had those good old Pop-Tarts, packed up our camp, and then we made our way down to the lake to get some water, which it was a really low. Like, the lake was low, which kind of confused me because it had been such a high snow year, but I think it must be controlled by a dam or something.
I don't know. We'll have to look that up.
Fact check me.
But it was, so the Lake Aloha, I guess one of the reasons maybe it was named that was because the water takes on just this beautiful turquoise blue color.
Yeah, it's super pretty.
And so it was cool because when we arrived at the lake the night before, the sun was kind of already a little bit behind the mountains behind the lake. And so in the morning, like kind of broad daylight, we could catch more of a glimpse of the beautiful blue color of the lake. And so even just filling up our water at the shore, you could see just like a beautiful reflection of everything around it. And it was a cool scene, and I could probably have spent more than a day there, several days, and been very happy and content.
Yep. But you can't spend that kind of time there when you have to go 20 miles that day.
Exactly.
We had big days coming up because we had a wedding in Salt Lake City on Saturday.
Yeah.
And this day was what? Tuesday, I believe? And we had from Lake Aloha about, would it have been 80 miles left?
No, it was
70?
like 59 miles.
No. 59 miles. Yeah. No, so it would have been about 8. 70.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the neighborhood of 70 miles.
So we had 70 miles to go Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We wanted to get there, like we wanted to leave on Friday because it was what, a 10-hour drive?
Something in that neighborhood.
And the wedding was at
3 p.m.
So we're doing a lot of complicated mathematics.
Some people call it girl math.
Yeah.
Or hiker math, but we just call it real complicated mathematic equations.
We just call it calculus.
And trigonometry and also geometry. So we were like going through the maths repeatedly, I think every single day, and when
it was sort of working.
It was sort of working, and we knew we had to give ourselves time to drive to the wedding, and we hadn't even thought about like being well rested enough to converse and enjoy our time, and at this point we hadn't even blocked out any time to like hang out with people.
I know.
We were just gonna show up for the ceremony. We're
because
here.
That was the way it was looking to be.
So there were a lot of variables and a lot of math.
So in other words, we couldn't just sit around all day at the lake. We had to fill up our water and we had to get going.
True.
And one thing that was interesting about Lake Aloha, I think I mentioned last week, that the lakeshore is like a half mile or a mile long.
Like a mile.
It's good. That was honestly kind of tricky terrain for my foot because the day before I had no pain from the moment I rose to the moment I rested my head on that non-marginal day at best.
Yes.
But I kind of felt sharp pain a few times on those rocks right away, and I thought, I'm a little concerned. Maybe it's just because it's so, like, it's really rocky and uneven. And also there was, like, this one spot that I just vividly remember as being super narrow, and I was like, what's going on here? You just, like, walk between these two rocks. It was kind of cool looking. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. But do you remember that when we were walking around the lakeshore, we saw that trail runner?
Yeah, and because Lake Aloha, it's like 8 miles from Echo Lake, so it's pretty accessible. Yeah. And there's this trail runner, and he arrived at the lake around when we were about to leave it and actually get on the trail and like no longer be at the lake. And he was like just hopping rock to rock, like along the shore of the lake, and it was a nice visual.
Picture.
And here we are with our packs, and we're just like, good for you, man. Keep hopping on those rocks.
Yep. And then, honestly, the trail got super nice for a while. It was, like,
forested.
Beautifully graded, forested.
Yeah.
One thing that was weird about it was there would be all these intersections, and I feel like the way that the pole sat, kind of, it would make it look like you needed to take the other trail to go where you wanted to go, or else that you were going to go back to Lake Aloha. So I feel like every time I'd, like, look, think.
It was the Lake Marjorie, like, junction. Yeah. We looked at the sign, we studied it, and we went the direction we thought it was pointing, and then as we kept going, we were like, nope, this is not the correct trail. We had to backtrack a little bit. And then, it was just like a really nice forested area.
And then suddenly it kind of shifted into the downhill, and that, honestly, I think a tough aspect for me mentally on the Tahoe Rim Trail is I usually glide downhill. Like, even if it's scree, I feel like we usually make good time and we can really roll.
Downhill is our favorite.
But it was like, again, that really sharp, uneven, kind of almost talus-y, but it was like talus in that it kind of was jumbled how it was laying there. And it looked like it had fallen from up above on the rocks, but it was like not like talus, in that I feel like a lot of the time talus settles, into where you have flatter spots to step. And it seemed to be kind of sticking up. Yeah. So I
basically every step was on a jagged edge. Mm-hmm. And I even remember thinking like, as I think to that point, that was the toughest part of the trail I think that I had walked on. Yeah. I know that the north end, it got pretty rocky, but the rocks were still flat enough that as you stepped on them, you could keep a pretty good pace. But it seemed like you really had to be deliberate about your steps and slow down. Yeah. And I think Carrie and I were both, we didn't really even communicate it, but I think we were both unanimously disappointed at our pace. Yeah. Because I think I had calculated in, okay, we get to lose like 1,500 feet leaving Lake Aloha, so we're going to just roll through that at, 3 miles an hour, and here we were doing like 2 miles an hour. Yeah. And instead of just like a nice, and like you were getting energy conserving downhill. It was tiring. And it was getting warm, and I was just like, oh shoot, like this is our fast part of the day. Yeah. And then we have our elevation gain in the afternoon, and we are not making the time that I thought we would.
Yeah. And I'm not like feeling as good as I thought I was going to feel either, too.
And it was at that point, because you walk, I don't think we were quite to Echo Lake, or maybe we were. But I'm thinking of the man who was ready to start his backpacking trip.
Yeah, there was a guy who was headed up, and I do not know what he had on his pack. It's like, those people that go too far with being ultralight, where they're like breaking, well, I've broken my toothbrush, so I can't say that's too far, but like where you're just shaving off those ounces everywhere you can. This guy was going like ultra heavy, like
to the extent of like plastic bags tied to his pack, filled with goodness knows what, and like multiple of them on his pack.
It honestly looked like a cartoon almost. Like he had so much attached to him, and I just felt really concerned about him, honestly, because he looked tired and he was like sitting down to rest, and it wasn't that far from Echo Lake, so I was just like, oh buddy, where are you going? But hopefully he was fine.
Yeah, so that was it. It kind of broke up the day a little.
I mean, that was interesting coming down there, because Echo Lake was really beautiful. Oh, yes. And it was interesting because it's kind of more populous along the edge of the lake shore, so there's all these little lake cabins that were kind of interesting to look at. And then suddenly you'd start running into groups of people who were very fresh, and so you knew they were probably coming from either Echo Lake, or maybe they were coming from a cabin. Totally. And there was even some areas that I thought kind of reminded me of the Enchantments. Remember, where you kind of had to go on a rocky area that didn't seem to be a trail?
At one point, we were on this rocky outcropping, and I was like, wow, this is getting very steep. And then I realized that the trail was about 15 feet to the left, and I thought, oh, thank goodness, because it was a cliff. Yep. And there wasn't really much more distance you could go. But I did feel like I need to befriend someone who has a lake cabin along Echo Lake, because that would be a very fun place to hang out for a while. And it looks like you can either take a ferry down to the end if you'd like to, or hike the trail. You can hike the trail and then access the cabins from there. But it was a really interesting setup. Mm-hmm. Even though I didn't love our pace, we finally got past the rocky section, and as we continued to traverse along Echo Lake, we kind of started to roll again. So that was nice, and we were making good time again. We were getting closer to Echo Lake itself, and we knew we had bathroom to look forward to, garbage to look forward to, the possibility of a place that had like a ice cream.
Yeah, there was allegedly ice cream.
Possibly. So we had several things, kind of the carrot in front of us, guiding us along. And we're walking along, and I see this kayaker in Echo Lake. And then I just like see all these bubbles around him, and I'm just like, what is happening?
And it just was going on for so long that eventually we were like, is he just watching someone drown?
I know. So we had to stop and stare. And it was funny. I mean, he was probably, I don't know, like 300 feet below us, like pretty far away. And I was just like, what is going on down there? And it was someone scuba diving, I guess, and picking up garbage.
Trash. Yeah, so it's cool that we saw they sent up a bag that like floats, and they bring garbage up, which I thought was really neat.
Yeah, so we did stop enough to see that. And I think it was around that time, could we see the end of the lake from there? Yeah. And I think at that point, did we see Alex?
So not right when we were there, but we
Okay.
did see him soon. One other thing I remember is we started seeing all these helicopters in the region, and I started getting nervous that there was like a
Oh.
forest fire. Do you
Yeah.
remember? Because there was also some smoke. So I was
There
like,
was.
smoke, helicopters. My foot's hurting again. One of my knees had started clicking. My blister had definitely popped because that uneven rock would like slam your feet all over. So I was like, things are getting weird out here.
Oh, I know, yeah, because I think they had another controlled burn.
Yeah, but it's like
but
we
it
didn't
was
know
weird,
yet.
like helicopters,
Yeah.
hazy. It's hot.
Mhm.
There was garbage being picked up off the bottom of the lake. What is happening here?
So it was actually, as we went on the last switch back, I looked down and there's like a little dam of some sort that goes across the lake that you can walk across. And I looked on there, and we hadn't seen Alex in the morning because he had camped somewhere that other than us, and he'd gotten going earlier than us and been ahead of us that whole day. And I remember I thought the whole day that maybe we would see him or we'd catch him.
Yeah.
And then I kind of looked down, and it felt like, I don't know, it was kind of fun to see him like walking across the dam, finishing what basically was his through hike.
Exactly, because he had started at Echo Lakes.
Yes,
and
well close to.
a piece from the night before, Alex had, I think his phone was almost dead.
Yeah.
And his power bank was dead, like he was all out of juice. And so Carrie and I, we go kind of on the conservative side when it comes to making sure we have enough power for our stuff. So we had enough to spare, and so we let him charge his phone partially or whatever. So he had told us that night, hey, if you guys need to just like recharge anything or you want something, like I have my vehicle parked at the snow park, Echo Lake Snow Park, so you can always pop by if you want to. And so I didn't know where the snow park was in relation to the trail. And so we were wondering like if we would catch up to him or if we'd see him that morning or if we'd see him at the snow park, even though we didn't know where it was. But then instead we saw him down on the dam.
And in my memory, it's actually kind of a cool sight, him like walking across the dam. I don't know, and being like, ooh, he's getting
it's like we had the like aerial view, like we were at the drone.
I was the
footage.
drone.
Yeah.
Did I take any footage of that? No.
No.
Would have felt creepy, but actually he probably would have liked that.
I know.
So
Well,
regrets.
darn.
Anyway, I don't have that kind of space on my phone.
Oh,
God. Anyway, so I saw him walking across the bridge, and I was like, oh, that's really fun. We're going to see him when we get down there.
Yeah.
So we made it down to the parking lot. The place where you can get ice cream is closed, so that was a bummer.
Yeah.
And I knew we had to just kind of keep going that day because we had 12 miles left. It was already like 11, I feel like, or it was getting kind of late.
Yeah, later than I wanted
because
it to be.
we definitely had not been making as good of time.
Yeah.
And so I kind of started getting into the mode of like, I need to throw my trash away. I need to like check my Band-Aid. I need to try and deal with my toe.
We did visit with him briefly.
Well, and you were visiting with him, but I feel
gotcha.
like I also was just kind of in my head where I had started thinking seriously for the first time that trip. And like, you know, I've been having problems this whole trip. Problems with my hip, problems with my foot, problems with my back briefly. But I had never really seriously considered not finishing the trail. But I think a piece of it was I always wanted to get to the Desolation Wilderness because I would be like, well, what was the point of the last 60 miles I did where I was miserable if I don't get to see the part I want to see?
Yeah.
And I think that when my knee had started popping, though, that day, I was like, so my foot's not getting better because at that point it was hurting like as bad as it had been hurting 2 days ago. My knee was popping. My blister was popped. And I started thinking to myself, like, I'm seriously concerned about my ability to go 12 more miles today, follow that up with an 18-mile day, follow that up with an 18-mile day, with a 20-mile day, and follow that up with a 10-mile day. And like
then follow that up with a 10-hour drive.
10-hour drive, and then follow that up with trying to dance my little heart out at a wedding. I was like, I was thinking that kind of on the descent. I'm getting seriously concerned about the real reality of this because, like, the day before when I had not had any pain, I'd kind of been like, okay, like I can rally, I can do this. But then I started thinking like, I don't know if it's worth it. And my ankle had been starting to swell, and I started thinking like, that does not feel like a good sign. So I started
Rarely
thinking,
is it.
Yeah. And so I just was like, I feel like it's hard if you don't finish something, you know, then it's like, I'm a quitter. But if you do push on for no good reason and then you injure yourself, then you're maybe not making good choices. And so I think I was kind of down there just like sifting through all these thoughts in my mind about like, what do I actually want to do and what makes the most sense right now. And Molly was visiting with Alex, and I remember he was like showing you the map where the snow park was in case we wanted to charge the phone. And it's funny because I'm just like, I feel like I was just like not paying attention at all. Like I'd be like, and I'd be like thinking in my mind about like, I don't know what we should do. We should do this or that. But luckily Molly was paying attention. So I kind of, we visit with him for a couple minutes more, then, congratulations.
Yeah,
and then we say our goodbyes, and he kind of heads out to his truck. And I honestly was kind of like started thinking, okay, so we can go another 20 miles and then have to add on a couple miles to a trailhead and try to hitch a ride if something happens. Or we have someone that we already know is probably not going to murder us. And they have a vehicle and they're nearby.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know. It just seems a little crazy not to take that option. And then I started thinking, started doing more calculus.
Your brain was going like a mile an hour.
That fast? And then I started thinking, maybe we could just zip on up to Washington and see some of the fall foliage.
Did you actually look at it on Instagram?
I was not on
Before
Instagram.
Or after we
not
talked?
on Instagram.
Oh, okay.
I was looking at the weather on the Weather Channel app. Not sponsored. Not sponsored by the Weather Channel. Don't worry, I have to look at all those ads.
And to give you the insider scoop, Carrie and I had not had any conversations about anything
Quitting.
but finishing the trail.
I
we
think
just
that,
talked about like, well, today we have 20 miles, like tomorrow we have 18 to 20 miles, the next day we have 20 miles, but if we are really tired we can do 16 and then we can do like
a longer day. And if we have to run it go into Friday, I
think I was already factoring in going into Friday. So we hadn't really had any conversation like that.
But I had kind of thought to myself, I really don't know the right thing to do. And so I kind of like prayed, like, if it's better for us to get off trail than it is for us to just push through and finish, like if that wouldn't be wise, then let Molly bring it up first.
And I hate this because it's like she's controlling me.
Beep boop, beep boop. Mitchell Peppatia.
She's controlling me with her prayers.
Okay.
So I'm sitting there, and it was weird because it was like, visiting with Alex. What an awesome moment to finish your through hike.
Oh,
like,
I know.
He had planned it out, and I mean, he had done the thing. Like, that is just such an amazing feeling. Mm-hmm. I love that. I want that for everyone, honestly.
I want that for me.
Me too. I love it when it happens to me, and I want it to happen all the time, and I also want it to happen to everyone else.
Yeah.
So when he walked away, though, it was just like I think in my mind, I also knew as long as he was somewhere around us, we actually did have exit strategy. Yeah. And as soon as he was gone, then like that option is off the table, and now it's just us walking the last 60 miles to our car with still a good amount of gain, a good amount of water carries, and not a ton of days to get it done. So I think it was like really when he actually left and I saw him leave the parking lot, get back on the trail, and it was just Carrie and I, that I started to just be like, oh wow, so now this is real. Like, we're finishing the rest of the Tahoe Rim Trail. And I kind of thought in my mind a little bit, because I think you had maybe told me that your knee was bothering you.
Yeah.
And it was true that Carrie had like edema in her ankle. It was
general maladies.
It was actually swollen to the point like you'd press your finger.
Yet. No, was it pitting that day already?
It was pitting earlier.
In the morning, I think it was. Yeah.
Yeah. So I just was sitting there and I was just like, gosh, like we were gonna do like one more like bigger like backpacking style trip before kind of winter set in. And we kind of said like, oh, this is for your birthday, Carrie. Like, we're going to do something fun that you'd like to do. And I sat there and I was like, I feel like it would be selfish of me. And, well, I'll start with this. I feel like it'd be selfish of me to be like, we have to finish this trail if Carrie's actually just having, like, suffering multiple different ailments. And this is supposed to be for her birthday. And it's not really been fun for her with the exception of a couple bright points, which were really bright and fun. But I started thinking, like, do we really have to just, like, force ourselves to do this just to do it? And then the sidebar, as well as my compassion for my sister, is that my toe blister was bigger and badder than ever. believe I took off my sock when we rested, and I looked at that thing, and I was just like, good Lord, it is the size of my entire big toe. Like, it had gone all the way around the toenail, and it was like 2 3/4, an inch high.
Oh my gosh, an inch.
It had like an eyes and a nose and a mouth, and it was talking.
2 mouths.
It had 2 mouths.
That's how it could get so big.
But I also was like, oh, like, this is actually kind of interrupting my ability to walk as well. And
Okay.
Carrie can keep pushing herself along, but if my toe isn't working, I don't really know how I feel about finishing the trail.
Oh my gosh.
So I was sitting there, and I just felt like, I was like, like, this is kind of stupid. I just am pretty bullheaded and stubborn, and it's like, when I set out to do something, I want to do it because I want to do it. And I feel like half of the reason why I wanted to do the Tahoe Rim Trail was because I wanted to finish the entire trail. Yeah. I don't know why. I guess that's just how it is in backpacking, through hiking, all those things. Like, it's a goal. You want to complete it. And I just had to reason through, and I was just like, I don't feel like that goal that I have selfishly for myself, because I think I could just like keep pushing through this toe thing, and every day would probably get worse, and
oh my gosh,
I could do it. But I just started
toe.
to really think, like, I feel like I shouldn't force Carrie to suffer because I'm not willing to ask her what she wants to do. Yeah. So this is a very, very long story about what was going on in my head. But
well, we already heard all my thoughts.
Which we don't share with each other, because that would mean we'd have to talk to each other.
And not just only talk when we're being recorded. Just kidding, we do talk to each other.
Like, okay.
An annoying amount.
Honestly. So I said, what did I say?
I think you were like, I don't know, I think you said something like, well, Carrie, it's your birthday. So I just, are you sure that you want to finish the trail, or do you want to just go and do something fun instead? You didn't mention about your blister. Anyway, and
I was giving her autonomy.
I was like, well, Washington's real beautiful in the fall, and the weather's going to be in the mid-60s for the next few days. And it's supposed to be mostly sunny to partly cloudy. So I think that we could probably make that work. She's like, what?
I was like, wait, you have a plan?
So we kind of looked at each other and we said, okay, time to formulate plan F.
That's amazing.
Thank you so much for listening to another episode of the Two Sisters on Adventures podcast. Tune in next week to find out what we decide to do on the Tahoe Rim Trail.
Be?
Where will they go? Will they go around and around and around? Probably not. I mean, that would be a lot of miles.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram,
YouTube,
Spotify, Apple Podcasts at Two Sisters on Adventures.
Wherever else you get podcasts.
And if you want to see pictures or videos of what we talked about this week, that's the ones that are on YouTube. No, that are on, I almost said Apple Podcasts. That are on Facebook and Instagram. So thanks so much for listening to us, and we hope you tune in next week to find out what happens.
It will be exciting.
Or not. Bye.
Bye.